because I remember I'd got up to quite a good age and I'd not worked with one woman director. And I was kind of thinking, is that just how it is? Or like, being young and just seeing it that way, I couldn't kind of understand it. And then I remember working with my first female director and I thought, this is a totally different vibe. It was brilliant. And I thought, oh, but now I'm starting to see it a lot more and it's good. And it's nice to see that there's a lot more stronger women characters being written out there, because sometimes you're always an accessory to a guy or you're somebody's wife or, and I was kind of sick of reading those. And if I do kind of see them, I'm a bit like, I'm just the wife at home. Okay. There's got to be something to her.
Hello and welcome to Women and Wellbeing with me, Natalie Anderson. In today's episode, we are talking the importance of female storytelling and bouncing back from rejection with BAFTA-winning actor Chanel Cresswell. So sit back, relax, and get ready to join us in our conversation.
The best I do on Instagram is, just the filters on the bottom, like a black and white or a parrot. That's my extent, and I'm going no further than that. But I do try and be very realistic on my Instagrams. Or my posts. I think it's important because there's so much out there that women and young girls are looking at, and it's just not realistic. And literally, I say to my friends, if there's somebody on social media and they are not making you feel good about yourself and they're unrealistic and you know that it's not real, don't follow it. Follow somebody else that makes you feel better, that's more realistic. Do you know what I mean? It just those little tweaks in life will help you endlessly.
Hello all, I hope you're all well. Today I am very excited to be joined by an extremely talented woman who I have to say I am a huge fan of. Winning her first BAFTA at the tender age of 26 for her role as Kelly in Shane Meadows' This Is England, her standout performances in Trolley, The Bay and Des, amongst many others, have seen her become one of our most promising female talents. Notably, she also took on the role of Coleen Rooney in Channel 4's courtroom drama Rooney versus Vardy, and has since gone on to star alongside Theo James in Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman. She's an absolute powerhouse of a performer, and I'm so thrilled that she's joining me today. She's the brilliant Chanel Cresswell. Hi, Chanel.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me.
That was quite an introduction. Thank you.
Well, I love that. I love that all my guests, I like to try and make sure all of my guests feel very excited to be with us and also kind of talk about the achievements, because we don't always do that. We don't always kind of give ourselves a little pat on the back. I mean, how does it feel to kind of, you're only still very young to kind of have that slate behind you?
Yeah, I think it's quite, when I look back, it seems, because it was probably like 15 when I started. Like when I look back now at all the things that I've done, it is quite overwhelming. But at the same time, it's been so rewarding because the people that I've worked with literally have been amazing. So I've been very, very lucky in this industry, and I'm very thankful for it as well. So yeah.
Well, also, it's not just down to luck, it's down to talent as well. You are extremely talented. And I know you started at Television Workshop, which is an incredible place up in Nottingham. And, we've had some fantastic actors come out of there, Samantha Morton, Vicky McClure, Jack O'Connell.
Yeah.
When you were younger, and going to that place, were there any other options for you in your area? Because you were only very young when you started there. Did you go to a school that kind of facilitated that, or was the Television Workshop the place to go?
It was kind of the only place for me. I came from like the outskirts, like Nottingham, Derbyshire, and there wasn't really many opportunities in the performing arts unless, you paid quite a lot for it. There was a lot of dance schools and dance academies that kind of tied acting with it. But and there was Stagecoach, places like that, but there wasn't really anywhere for probably kids that didn't really have a lot at the time. And so it was a real refuge for talent that does get missed. So yeah, in terms of the Television Workshop, it has got some incredible raw talent because it helped children that didn't necessarily want to go to drama school and all the jazz hands. They needed something more real and gritty that they could relate to. So yeah, the workshop definitely helped with that.
And you say that there, like that, I personally find that there are two kind of different avenues within the industry. You can love performing in the sense of being on stage and under the lights and all of that stuff. And then equally, I think there's a different side of storytelling, which is a
Yeah.
little bit more kind of stripped back and bare. So you think you belong in that camp?
Yeah, because I remember I was at school when you do like drama and things like that. I remember I really enjoyed acting, but I wasn't the same as like my friends that could do the splits and that had great voice. I can sing a tiny bit, but like, they were more singer, dancing and performing. And I knew I loved to perform, but I just knew that it wasn't that I wanted to do, and that I had something a bit more real to give and a bit more muted down. I mean, what they do is amazing, and hats off to them. It's high energy and they work hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, it didn't feel right to me, and it didn't feel natural. So I was like, where do it must be the TV route. So yeah, the television workshop really helped with that, because then I felt like, oh my God, I'm at home.
That was the place then that you kind of auditioned for Shane and ended up with This Is England, which,
Yeah.
my God, what an incredible role, an incredible experience. And also Shane is very renowned for kind of his telling of working class stories and those women and those relationships. You were 15 when you got that role, and she's quite a character. What was that like? What was it like getting the call anyway?
It seems so long ago now. In fact, I put a post actually on the other day. It was 18 years ago since we did the film, like literally a couple of days ago, and that made me feel really old. But yeah, I think it was a bit of a shock, but at the time it was kind of, because I was really young. I'd heard of Shane Meadows and like the amazing work he did, and so we was all really excited. But I never in a million years thought I'd get a role. And then obviously when I got the phone call, I was like, oh my God. But it was kind of nice that I was naive to the fact at that age, we didn't know how big it was going to be. So, those films, you are really getting real gritty performances from all the young actors, because none of us knew. And it's nice being that age, because you're kind of oblivious to everything going on around you.
And him as a director as well, because obviously now that you have been out in the wider world and worked with some incredible directors, but would you say like the approach starting there and going into maybe something that's a little bit more
constructive?
Yeah, like how was that transference for you?
It wasn't difficult, but it was different. And I think because my first experience was with Shane, where he gave you a bit more freedom, the good thing about that was we were able to create our own characters confidently.
Yeah.
So on to my next job, I knew that I could create a character and be confident about it. But it was definitely like, oh no, Chanel, you can't just dwindle off, and you've got to stick to the lines. And somebody did say that once. I think it was on Casualty, and I started impro, and he was like, no, you have to stick to the scripts. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm not with Shane anymore. So I did have to learn that way. But I picked up very, very quickly that, a script to script. And some directors let you, and some directors are a bit more, stick to the script, which is fine. I don't mind either way.
Yeah, and obviously, so you had the film, and then you had 3 series in the film.
Yeah.
So in and amongst those series, you were obviously working on other things, and then you did win the BAFTA. You did get that huge accolade. And like you say, whilst it must seem, some time ago, in terms of what that did for you in terms of the industry and like any pressure, was it a help or a hindrance? Like what, again, the experience of that, what was that like for you?
I always found that This Is England was like a very heavy look and a very heavy vibe, obviously. So I think sometimes when you do win an award for something like that, it does probably take a little bit of time to shake it off. And having a skinhead and all these crazy hairstyles, every time I was going into casting rooms, they didn't really recognize. They was like, oh my God, you look so different. So I think sometimes it was great, and I'll always have that win under my belt. But at the same time, I still had to prove the fact that I could play other roles and look different. So yeah, it's been a bit of both. It's been a hindrance, I guess. Not a hindrance, but it has been a way of proving myself. I still have to do that. But at the same time, everyone congratulates you for the work that you do as well. So.
And in terms of like the roles that you have taken, like you say, a lot of them have been very specific with their look and very specific with they're very characterful. Is that again the side of it that you really enjoy and that you relish, like getting under the skin of somebody?
I think one of my favorite departments is the makeup and hair because I just really, I mean, I've worked with some amazing makeup artists and hair, hair departments, and I do get really involved and I come in with ideas and color matches or accessories in the hair. I stick within the character brief. I never step out of it, whether it's,
Mm-hmm.
I really don't mind. I know I really don't mind going, obviously, this is England, going bare on camera and like if the character needs that sort of raw and real look,
Yeah.
I thrive off that. But then again, if you can look glamorous and beautiful at the same time, I love doing that as well. I think it's very important to do both sides of the coin. But yeah, I love the hair and makeup bust. It's like my favorite.
I am the same, I have to say. I always, but like, once I found my shoes, I'm like, okay, what shoes does she wear?
Yeah,
Like, once you've done that bit, and then you get in the mirror, and as you've been made up, it's like you
the
see the
develop.
other version and the character coming to life, don't you? I mean,
Yeah,
in terms of yeah, that development process, and when you get a role, what is your process for like breaking down the character and looking into backstory and things like that? Is that, again, do you enjoy that side?
yeah, I do. I mean, when I play somebody that obviously when you're playing a real life person and you're stepping into their shoes, I try and do as much research as I can. So I read books, I listen to music that I think that they would listen to. And the one thing that I think is really interesting is when you first get hold of a script, I read it and I have a notepad next to me and I write down my first reaction to everything
Right.
because that's my intuition. Then I could kind of cross reference it with other characters, the dialogue, and I kind of go from there.
Mhm.
And it's interesting to have like imagery around you of things that they either enjoyed or they like doing. It's kind of just a slow build of layers that you start to inhabit. And I think as well when you read the script, it's nice to see how other characters perceive you and how you react to them and your relationships with each one of them. And it kind of goes from there. But I do think that when you get your hair and your makeup and your costume on, when you've done all that backstory work and then you put that on, I remember when we was doing This Is England, as soon as the girls had their Doc Martens on and their head shaved, like everyone even walked different. It was crazy, but brilliant. Crazy, but brilliant.
And then, because you've created the world, then, haven't you? You've
Mm,
created that world that you step into. I mean,
yeah,
and you have played like different sides of the coin. If you look at something like Trolleyed, which is a sitcom, and then again, you're looking like This Is England, then you've got Tammy and the Gentleman, and all these other incredible shows that you've been in. I mean, one of my favourite performances of yours was Jess in the Bay. I mean, that first opening episode, you
yeah.
literally broke my heart in that
Oh,
opening episode.
sorry.
It was just so incredible, and it felt so real. Like,
Yeah,
it really felt like that you were so much that character. And in terms of kind of, like you say, you've created this world and playing all these very different kinds of roles. When you have something like Jess and that grief, what is it that you tap into with that?
it's really difficult when you have to kind of resonate with something that you don't have any sort of
Mm.
experience with personally. But well, I asked we had a death in the family that was quite young, and so I kind of asked my mum around about that, and she was really open, and so that was very interesting to kind of understand that side, and
Yeah.
also I read books on I won't say what particular mother, but mothers that have lost children quite young, and the book was just heartbreaking, and I really pulled a lot from that. And I remember I wrote a note in that particular book just saying how much it helped me on this role, and I went and put it in the local Tesco where they have like bookshelves
Like a
where
swap, like a kind of
yeah,
thing where you can take in a book and then it moves on.
yeah, because I really thought like it helped me for this role, and it was just a really like it just puts life into perspective a bit, and it did for me, and I thought someone might need that same perspective one day, so I went and put it there for somebody else to pick up. So yeah, it's just pulling on the the right heartstrings, and to yourself and to others.
Because when you do play a role like that, or you know, if your character is going through something, it's hard, isn't it, to switch off? It's hard to kind of say, like, you've done a whole day's filming and you've been in that
Mm,
headspace, and then to walk away and then you become Chanel again. Like,
yeah.
how do you approach that? How do you make sure like you're protecting your own kind of mental health and well-being to keep you doing the job that you do?
I think there's only probably been a few times on certain jobs where I've walked away and thought that was a tough day.
Mm.
It's kind of hard, like, there's certain scenes that you do that are difficult. Um, and there was one particular day that it's probably only happened twice where I've just sat in the car on the way home and I've just started crying.
Mm.
And I don't know why. It just that the day's been quite overwhelming and quite like, what just happened and how did I get through that? But other than that, other than like really difficult days like that, I'm quite good with that.
Robust in kind of going, right,
That's done.
that's me.
Yeah, go have Deliveroo at home, have a bath. Next day, bring it on.
Again, like we were talking about, like how you've put on the role, do you think how in your trailer at the end of the day when you're like de-rigging, do you think that is so much a part of that as well, like that compartmentalization of it?
Yeah, kind of. I guess when you're starting to take all your hair out and if it's been gripped in all day and like your head's getting a raw after, it's like, oh, I can let it go and then back in tomorrow. So that does help. Yeah, it
Um,
does. It's nice to put your own clothes on.
yeah, I often think that as well, and get into your own Uggs and things like
Yeah,
that. Like you need your own comfy clothes, and you need to like,
exactly.
you know, to just be like, oh, get the makeup off. I don't know about you. Are you a person that takes it off straight away?
I'm like that. I'm like, take it all off, get it gone. Um, yeah, I'm the same.
And in terms of like Tammy in The Gentleman, wow, the car. I mean, I have to talk to
Oh,
you about that car. Honestly, I was like,
that
this is
was so fun.
amazing.
Oh my God, that was so fun. I literally got a phone call and it was like, um, basically on the 23rd of January, we want you to come to London and you're going to be practicing how to drive this McLaren. And I do love cars.
I was going to say, you look like you really enjoyed that.
I do know how to drive a car. I'm quite, I've drove some cars in my time. So this
I
was a
was going
real
to ask, what do you
me.
mean?
Oh, and then Ben Collins turned up, who's like incredible. Like he's done like all sorts. And I was like, oh my God, this is getting better. And so I was just racing this McLaren on a car park. But the best thing was it was my birthday. So
Oh, wow.
and so they bought me a birthday cake on set as well. And where I was racing this car, and it was absolutely brilliant. It was so, so good. And then on the day when we was racing the car, I was doing figures of eights,
Yeah.
which was brilliant. But they said to me, look, last time you didn't have a camera rig on the car. So I look at the McLaren and I'm like, it is rigged
Yeah.
from head to toe in probably £500,000 worth of camera gear. And they said, just take it steady. And I was like, well, that's just taken all the fun out of it. I still gave it a good go and the
Yeah.
camera stayed on. But I was like, nah, I'm still going to go for it.
Because, like I say, you looked like I was watching it with my husband going, oh my God, this is incredible. And he was so jealous. My
Oh,
husband
it's
was like,
brilliant.
this is amazing.
One of the funniest characters I've played. I
I
love
was going to
it.
say, she is brilliant. And when you were doing like the full Russian accent and the
Oh,
outfit and everything, it just looked like, again, you were having so much fun with her. And am I right in thinking that there is going to be another series and she will be back? Am I
there
right?
is another series. I'm not sure on the ins and outs just yet, but yeah, there's definitely a series too. So it'll
And
be fabulous.
yeah, because like I say, she was just such an incredible character. And to see that, I mean, what I loved about it as well was like you had this woman just absolutely tearing around in the cars. I mean, in terms of like female storytelling, you know, we've obviously had Kelly and her amazing stories in This Is
Mm.
England and Jess. And do you feel like the stories for women are getting better in the industry? Do you feel like there's more now for women than maybe when you first started out?
Yeah, I'd probably say so. It has gotten better. I have the scripts I read and that come through to me. They're getting told a lot better. A lot of women are telling their stories, and there's a lot more women's, you know, writing their own own pieces. More women directors. Because I remember I'd got up to quite a good age, and I'd not worked with one woman director.
Mm.
And I was kind of thinking, is that just how it is, or like, being young and just seeing it
Yeah.
that way? I couldn't kind of understand it. And then I remember working with my first female director, and I thought, this is a totally different vibe. It was brilliant. And I thought, oh, but now I'm starting to see it a lot more, and it's good. And it's nice to see that there's a lot more stronger women characters being written out there, because sometimes you're always an accessory to a guy, or you're somebody's wife, or and I was kind of sick of reading those. And if I do kind of see them, I'm a bit like, I'm just the wife at home. Okay. There's got to be something to her.
Yeah, and like you say, like something for you personally of like, what is the driver? Like who is
Yeah.
this woman, and getting under the skin of these women. And do you feel like your characters, any of your characters have taught you anything, or you've taken bits away from them and gone, you know what, playing her has made me feel X, Y, and Z?
Sometimes when you do play real people or things like that, you kind of come away and think, oh, that's interesting how they dealt with that or lived their life, or because when you film those sort of things, like I remember when I did My Name Is Lenny, I played Val McLean.
Yeah.
And it was just so interesting to hear about someone else's life and how interesting it was. I mean, that was fascinating. I read her book as well, and it's just delving into their lives and their bubbles, and just so much that goes on that if you did write about it, you'd think, no, surely not. This isn't true, but it was true. And Jamie McLean, his son, he would be like, "Yeah, that happened," and he'd tell me loads of stories, and it was incredible. And you walk away thinking, God, there's some very, very tough, strong women out there, and I love it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? Like you say, I mean, that really leads me really well onto Coleen and playing that role. And I mean, who would have ever thought that situation, the whole Agatha Christie thing, would be true? Like that, you would assume that is a drama, and obviously it was Colleen's real life. But in terms of, again, getting that role and the responsibility of playing someone who's alive, who's here, who's got we see her and she's part of kind of our culture, really. The responsibility of that, how did you approach that? Like, what was that like for you?
It was quite terrifying, and it was a decision that I didn't. It was kind of a decision to take the role, and I did think about it for a while, because I thought, if I am going to play Coleen, I wanted to do it justice and not overthink how she sounded, or because she didn't speak a lot publicly. As she got a bit older, she kept herself very much to herself. I don't blame her. So they were I was literally trying to grab any interview, and there was only ones that I could find when she was quite a lot younger than she is now. And you do change, when you become a parent. Course, yeah. And you've been through a lot in life, and you genuinely grow up. Your voice changes a little bit, the way you hold yourself, the way that you are. When you come into your 30s, that does change massively from when you was 22. So I didn't have a lot to go off. I just had tiny bits, and I didn't have long. I didn't have long at all. I probably had a couple of weeks.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, to get it under my belt. Literally probably about 2 weeks. So it was pretty terrifying, but I literally condensed myself with Coleen as much as I could. And I always had her in my ears constantly, just like little snippets of her voice, and there was just little things I kept picking up on, little mannerisms that she did. And it was really nice, because when I filmed it, I do have a lot of people a lot of friends, and a lot of my friends in Liverpool, and I did have some really nice comments. So yeah, I wanted to play her as a mother, a sister, a daughter, and it was just my interpretation of her. And
I think it was
the transcript that was interesting.
Yeah, I think it was a really beautiful portrayal of her, because for many people, I think it like I was saying before, the figure that she is, to almost do an impression of her, or to kind of it be sent up in some capacity, and it really wasn't.
No,
it was really grounded and a really heartfelt performance, which I think is exactly why it did really well in terms of it being taken seriously as a drama, and it wasn't some kind of a spoof or anything like that. It really was a brilliant drama, because the performances from all three of you, from Michael and from Natalie and from yourself, were all really grounded.
Yeah, I
And
think it was
did
important not to make a caricature. And and that was another thing as well. Like the first thing I asked, like, are we delving into their lives privately, like, or is it just purely the transcript? And we're literally, because you had to learn it word for word, you couldn't step out. So
right,
it's, do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
that was quite a challenge, because there was lots of dialogue, and being stood up there, it felt like we were on trial. Like everyone was in each other's shots. We were all so supportive of each other. We all held each other's hand through it, but it felt like you were on trial. So it was just important to me that we didn't make it a caricature. It was the transcript, and that was it. And it was important that we did give the women a fair, which I think Channel 4 did well. So yeah, I was glad I did it. It was scary for me, and that's why I did it.
yeah. And like your accent as well, the accents are brilliant. I mean, I was saying before, like your accent as Tammy when she was playing the Russian lady. I mean, do you enjoy that? Do you enjoy playing around with accents?
Oh yeah, I love it. I've done all sorts. I think it's great. Like I had a self tape recently that was Scottish, and I'm like, I said to my agent, I went, just give up now. And he said, Chanel, just give yourself a go. And so I sent the self tape off, and I rang him. He said, Chanel, you've done a really good job. So I think if you get your ear in and you can think of somebody in your head, because I had an actress in my mind, I think you're good to go. I'm not too bad. I'm not too bad.
So we're putting Scottish on the CV now.
I can put Scottish on the CV, yeah.
In terms of when you're doing your self tapes and everything, and any form of rejection, you're like, because even if you've done brilliantly, and this happens to everyone, there are roles that you want and you might not get, or you've taped for things. And what is your kind of approach and experience of auditioning and self tapes? And if you really want something, you don't get it, do you bounce back quickly? Like what is your experience with that?
It is difficult, because I have had two instances recently where I've really, this time in my life and what I've just been through, personally, I really wanted this part, and it was brilliant, and it was like I felt like, oh, somebody sent it down for me, because it's literally just what I'd been through, and I'd got really really close, and it is difficult sometimes to have to get your head around that it's not personal, it's not about you, it can just be about little factors, because sometimes the casts are quite big and it's an ensemble of people and they need to place everybody, and I understand that. Doesn't make it easier for me.
Because it is hard, isn't it? It is hard to pick yourself up. I think the older I'm getting now in the industry, when I was a lot
Yeah,
younger, I used to literally like, don't anybody speak to me, like it's over. But the more it happens, you almost become, that bit hardened to it. And the more I
yeah.
suppose you get aware of the industry and how the decisions, like you say, they're not personal.
Mm.
It's those things where you get the brief and you go, oh, that could work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm invested in this.
Yeah.
And I think as well, self tapes, they do take I mean, when I get a tape, like I'm reading all the scripts, I'm doing all my character work, and then you come to filming it, and it does take a few days to kind of prep for it. And sometimes I have to drag my mum in, and that takes a couple of goes, because she just goes into different accents, and then sometimes she says something wrong, and so you think it can be quite time consuming.
Yeah. And does your mum ever go, I won't do it like that? Like
Yeah.
my husband does that.
Honestly, the amount of rows that I've had with everybody, every actor or actress can resonate with the fact that when you read it with a family member, oh, these arguments all the time. I mean, I laugh about it, and I keep all the clips, where my mum goes wrong, and I put them all together. Do that, and then just show it at Christmas. It's brilliant.
I am gonna do that.
Do
That
it,
is
honestly.
absolutely brilliant. I'm
Like a gag
keeping
reel.
that one. There you go. That's your little like, okay, we're gonna do that. Well, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, because
Honestly, funny.
it's so hard though, isn't it? Like you say, and if you don't get something, and then building your confidence back, because it does knock your confidence. You could
Does.
be like so strong minded, but
Mm,
it does have that kind of little it just hurts you. and and
yeah.
and so in terms, like you say, so you give yourself a couple of days. Do you listen to music? Do you work out? How else do you kind of go about like getting yourself back on track?
I got into Bikram yoga when I was living in Bristol. filming trolleyed, and there wasn't really anything like that round here where I live. But then there was a hot yoga class up the road, and honestly, I just find it's been a saving grace for me. It really has. Um, because sometimes you can just get really exercise. I don't mind exercise, but when you're like doing like circuit training or boxing, which I used to do, I just find it exhausting sometimes. Whereas yoga was just a totally different approach to mental well-being and exercise combined. And I just felt like that was a saving grace for me. And swimming, morning swimming, getting up. Like this morning, I was sat in bed, I felt a bit like I'd been up since like 3:30, and I thought, oh God, I can't sit here. And I literally at about 5:30, I got up, got my swimsuit on, and went for a lovely morning swimming at the outside swimming pool. And there's just something about being with the outside elements and fresh air and in a nice pool. I just thought, yeah, this is work for me today. I needed it.
So it's like your approach seems to have changed from it being kind of high octane. So like the more you're kind of dealing with things that are probably more pressurized in life, you want something a little more kind of gentle. I say gentle, Bikram's hard. It's not like Bikram and hot yoga is very difficult.
Yeah. That is hard, Bikram. That'll test anybody's endurance.
Yeah, and the hot yoga as well, like yeah. It's brilliant and fantastic, obviously, for like detoxifying and everything. But even still, it's not quite as the intensity that you would get with boxing or, like you say, running or something like that.
It's funny you've mentioned that, because I've actually not thought about that. Like when I was younger and probably more wired and a bit like, I'd do like very aggressive workouts and really, really work my body hard. Whereas when I stepped into my 30s, I thought, right, I've done all that. Now probably it's time to take care of it a bit more. So it's funny because I'd actually not recognised that until you'd said it. But yeah, that's very true.
And in terms of now being in your 30s, what have been, or if there have been any changes for like just your mindset, whether it's your mindset with work or with life, or how you feel in general about like yourself and confidence, what things do you think you've learned?
Give yourself a break. Like, because through your 20s, I don't know, I know a lot of my friends, it's a bit up and down, and it's, I don't know what it is. I was probably a bit wappy in my 20s. I'll probably admit that. Not necessarily in a bad way, just like in my head. I just never gave myself a break, and I was really hard on myself. And then when I got into my 30s, like everybody says, in your 30s, something will just hit home. And it does to a certain extent. And so I've really enjoyed my 30s. I'm saying that like I'm 40. I'm not. I'm 35.
And there's nothing wrong with being 40.
There's nothing wrong with being 40 at all. But I mean in terms of where I'm at on my timeline. Because I just think the kind of older that you get, the more you give yourself a break, the more you look after your well-being, and you don't do that in your 20s as much. And it's making those little changes, like doing yoga, going for a swim. If you do go to the gym, probably just do a brisk walk and a few little weights. Like I'm not pushing it. And if I do work hard at something, I go, well, you worked hard at that, you did the best that you could, that's okay. It's just giving yourself a break. That's what I've learned to do.
And being kind to yourself, like kindness in terms of your attitude and maybe affirmations towards yourself as well.
Yeah. And as my friends have got older, and like my sister, and I'm watching my brother's partner at the minute, they're all having children. I'm watching all my friends go through motherhood, and I think I just have a brand new respect for women and their bodies and everything that they go through. And I think that's why we should be kinder to them. And it's such a big thing that women have to go through, with either going through pregnancies and then going through the change that you notice, like your people in your family a bit older openly talk about it, and you think women go through a hell of a lot, and we don't talk about it enough. We are starting to now, but it did used to be a taboo subject when I was younger. You never really spoke about anything.
Women's health.
Yeah. And now, and you think, God, like these women, they go through so much. They really
And
do.
does it for you, like now when you do approach characters like that are in like 30 plus and you know now that at this point in life,
Mm,
like you say, with a slightly different head, I know I do, I know like
mm.
because I'm that bit older than you, so when I'm now getting characters that are kind of my age in their early 40s, I'm now going, oh, there's a whole load of other stuff that I'm bringing to this now that I never would have
Yeah,
thought of before.
the wisdom's something else. You can't buy wisdom, it comes with time. And that's one thing that I am grateful for. Why would you not be grateful at getting older? Like, that's a beautiful thing. It means that you're making it through.
I love that. I love that idea and that sentiment. And I think it's very much like what our podcast is about. I mean, you have to do the red carpet and all the press tours and all of that kind of thing. And do you
Mm.
enjoy like the dressing up side of it? And how do you feel when you're putting yourself out there? Because they can be extremely daunting.
Yeah, there always is. Oh, like having my photo taken anyway. I don't mind it to a certain extent, but anyone that knows me is I'll have a few, like even just my personal life. I have a few goes at taking a photo just to mark the moment, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not that way really. I love fashion. I love getting dressed up. I love shoes. I love dresses. I love structures of dresses and how they're made. You know, I appreciate all that and hair and makeup. Love makeup. But at the end of the day, like it's funny because I was having a word with my friend who has a younger daughter, and I said to her, I said it's very important for me. I mean, people face tune and everything now, and I was like, what's this? The best I do on Instagram is, you know, just the filters on the bottom, like a black and white or a parrot. That's my extent, and I'm going no further than that. But I do try and be very realistic on my Instagrams or my posts. I think it's important because there's so much out there that women and young girls are looking at, and it's just not realistic. And literally, I say to my friends, if there's somebody on social media and they are not making you feel good about yourself and they're unrealistic and you know that it's not real, don't follow it. Follow somebody else that makes you feel better, that's more realistic. Do you know what I mean? Just those little tweaks in life will help you endlessly. Just don't look at it.
Because it is hard, isn't it? Like social media is so massive now, and you're
Mm.
completely right. Like the face tuning fake thing, I find it baffling, and
How do you know that thing?
I didn't like it's such a scary thing that people can do, and there's all these different apps and everything. Like you say, I'm one of those people that's on the bottom that's like, oh, okay, I kind of like this one, you know,
Yeah,
Valencia, whatever it is. Like that's
yeah.
one of my favorites. But in terms of like your approach to fashion, you know, and like you say, you love the structures and probably the artistry of it all.
Yeah,
Do you enjoy experimenting with clothes and that kind of thing? And you know, how do you feel about that?
yeah, I do like experimenting. I haven't done it massively. Like everyone around here kind of goes, I've got a quirky dress sense, but to me, I don't think that I have. But yeah, I do really enjoy fashion, and like when I do my fittings and things, I always say like bring a big, like for the gentleman premiere, I was wearing latex, like I
Yeah.
love that, but it was like really high. It was like kind of like a Victorian sort of shape, like high collared, like puffball sleeves, but it was like in this really totally abstract
Did
material.
you work with Kelvin on that look?
Yes,
Kelvin
Barron,
Barron, yeah, who is an amazing stylist. And
fantastic.
he's what I love about Kelvin is you can you he really gets into your mindset, and he's
Huge.
really gets to understand you as a person,
Mm.
what you're interested in. You know, I feel like he gets under your skin like that, and then you create characters together. Do you think, is that a similar process for you?
Yeah, because I remember I think we was going to the BAFTAs and he was like putting everyone in these like, you know, gowns and and there's me in this like powerhouse suit. And I was like, how come they're all in and I'm in this like, but it's because he understands me, he understands what my mind is and who I am. And so I love the fact that he does push me in that way because he's making sure that I'm not being somebody I'm not. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do love the feminine energy every time, every now and again. But I do kind of like to go for a power sort of vibe. So yeah, he's very good. And he's worked damn hard. He works his absolute socks off. So yeah, he's brilliant.
Just before we finish up, just very quickly, I just wondered if you could go back and speak to your younger self, like what would you have any words of wisdom for her?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I'd give myself a huge hug and I'd just go, everything, I do believe that everything is mapped out for us, and you can't change what's going to happen to you. You'll either make the mistakes, you'll make the same ones again. Just live life, have fun, and everything will be all right.
Oh, Chanel, we've sadly run out of time for today, but honestly, you have been such an incredible guest. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
To watch Chanel, you can currently catch her in The Gentleman, which is now streaming the full series on Netflix. And you can also keep up with her on Instagram at Chanel Cresswell. For more women's health and lifestyle, you can visit us at our website, www.thecapsule.co.uk. You can also catch up with our previous podcast episodes by visiting the podcast page and subscribing to any of our podcast channels and YouTube. As always, please feel free to leave your rates and reviews. I love hearing from you. You can also drop us a message at Official Capsule at our Instagram if you'd like to leave any messages about future guests or any of our current episodes. I will be back next week with another very special guest, but all that's left to say today is goodbye. So it's goodbye from Chanel.
Bye.
And goodbye from me.